We are going to begin today by going over yesterday's independent practice. As I'm teaching, I want you to know if you have a question at any time that I do not answer using the chat feature, you can stay on and we can talk about it once I'm finished presenting. I do monitor your comments, but I can't always answer them right then. So please know that I want to answer them and to save them, maybe jot them down somewhere near you so I can answer those as we continue our learning together virtually. Yesterday, you guys solved independent practice using the test code you see on the screen in Mastery Connect. Today, we're going to check those answers together. As my screen updates, I want everyone to know that after it's been assigned, once I go over the best answers, it is no longer available for you to solve in Mastery Connect. So once I give you the answers, you will not be able to go back in and click those in. Of course, that would be cheating and that would break the social contract. So yesterday, you solved a text called From It All Began with Space War. And this was an informational text with a lot of different text features. So you can see a timeline at the bottom, informational. So after you read this text, you then were asked to solve some questions about it. The first one asks, it says read the statements in the box below, and it gives A, B, C, D, and E. It says select the main idea and 3 key details that you would include in a summary about the passage. Write them to complete the chart below. And then it says something important for us to understand. It says use the letters A through E from the answer choices above. And you can see those answer choices here. So let's go ahead and see what we think might be the best answers. And this was a commonly missed. So many people did not focus on this here. It says make sure the key details are in sequential order. And I modeled that in our lesson in our live meet yesterday. So they could not be out of order for you to get these as the best answers. So first, my thinking map or my brace map tells me I need to think about the main idea. So let's look at our answer choices. A, many companies began making computer video games. B, stars and gravity were added to make the game more realistic. C, Space War helped introduce computer games to the world. And D, Pong was so successful, Bushnell started a company to make and sell it. E, Space War showed what a computer could do and was fun to play. So I'm thinking about what might be the main idea out of those answer choices. Sarah Barton, I'm noticing you're saying you can't see the screen. I think you should log out and come back in and rejoin us. Cam, I think you should log out and come back in and rejoin us. Okay, so now I'm thinking about, out of those answer choices, what the main idea might be. Well, I see some tiny details in my answer choices. I'm thinking only one tells me what the entire text that I already read independently was about. And I'm even noticing some of the text features that might support that. Okay, so now I can go back to my answer choices and I'm thinking about what might the main idea be. I'm going to give my screen just a moment to update for you. Okay, so as I'm thinking about the most important information, the one that gives the strongest, most important information would be C. So using these answer choices, I would write C as my strongest answer. And C from the box says Space War helped introduce computer games to the world. Well, this is my main idea, matching answer choice C. And now I'm thinking about what key details would support answer choice C? What key details would support answer choice C? Remember, I have to keep them in order. I have to keep them in order. So I notice I have several more in the box at the top. And as I think about my next answer, I need to know E sequentially in the text says Space War showed what a computer could do and was fun to play. This is what happened next. It supports my main idea. And it also proves Space War helped introduce computer games to the world. Since it showed what a computer could do, it introduced it to the world. Miss Hogue, I'm noticing several people are saying they can't see my screen. Miss Hogue, can you see my screen? Can you leave me a comment and tell me that?
Yes, ma'am. I can see your screen. I was letting them know that I was typing, that they could click one of your other names. That may be the problem. I can click one of your other names.
Yes, can you tell them how to do that now?
Because there's 3 devices with your name on them.
Yes, can you tell them how to do that now so that I can make sure they
Yes,
understand?
ma'am. So you click on the people. Yes, ma'am. You click on the little people at the top of the screen, and then it should show like all the names of everyone in the class chat right now. And you can just click one of her 3 names, and one of them will have the screen on there.
So what Miss Hogue is telling everyone is I'm logged in several times because I'm logged in on 3 different devices. So you need to click on any Bitmoji that has my name, and one of them will show you my screen. So if you have done that, you should be able to see what I'm presenting to you. So go to, just like Ms. Hogue said, she said, click on the people icon, and then click on the ones that say Miss Daniel. One of them will display my screen. Okay, let's keep going. So now I'm thinking about another key detail. And as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about what would support the main idea. Space War helped introduce computer games to the world. And also, what would be next according to the order that the author gave it to us in the article, which is called sequential order. So I'm thinking the next one I need would be D. D says, Pong was so successful, Bushnell started a company to make and sell it. And now I'm thinking about the next detail that would support my main idea. Space War helped introduce computer games to the world. Well, I'm thinking A supports that. Many companies began making computer video games. Yes, Sarah Barton, I am talking. Okay, so now I'm thinking I have 3 of the strongest answers, E, D, and A. All 3 of my key details support the main idea. All right, these 4 answer choices were 4 of the most commonly missed. I think we chose tiny details. Like I had a lot of students that chose B. Stars and gravity were added to make the game more realistic. Well, this is not needed when I'm summarizing. This is a tiny detail. Okay, so we had to eliminate it, and then we also had to think about what was the order. What was the order? So we had to go back to the text and find what came first, second, and third in the text. Okay, now let's look at the next one. You guys solved number 5. Number 5. And get some of this stuff out of our way. Number 5. Which of these details is not important enough to include in a summary of the article? So I'm thinking about which one is not important enough. That means it's a tiny detail. A. Space War, the first video game, began the age of electronic games. B. Games were ideal for exploring what computers could do. C. Space Invaders, Asteroids, Seawolf, and Carnival were all arcade games. Well, I'm thinking number 5 asked me for the one that I do not need. And I know that because it uses this word not. I'm thinking out of the 3 I've read, C might not be needed because it's a tiny detail. But I'm going to check D. Space War was too difficult for most people to play. I think if I have to choose one that I do not need in a summary, I think it needs to be C. I do not need this when I'm summarizing. It's interesting, good to know, but it is not important. Let's look at number 6. The following question has 2 parts. First answer part A, then answer part B. Part A. Which sentence best summarizes key details in paragraph 8? Oh my goodness. So I actually am only, this is a small fry question, I'm only asked about paragraph 8. So as a test taker, I would have to go back to paragraph 8 to be able to correctly solve it. And that's what I want you to do when you're working independently. It says in paragraph 8, about the same time, Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney, 2 electrical engineers, designed the game Computer Space. Bushnell described the game as a cosmic dogfight between a spaceship and a flying saucer. Computer Space, however, did not catch on with game players, so Bushnell and Dabney invented an electric table tennis game, which they called Pong. An expert on arcade games, Bushnell matched the excitement of table tennis with the fun of a pinball machine. Pong was so successful that Bushnell founded the Atari Company to manufacture and sell the game. Pong is considered the first truly successful coin-operated video game. So now that I've reread, I can go back to that question. Which sentence best summarizes key details in paragraph 8? So I'm looking for the best summary of the paragraph we just reread. I'm thinking if I have to choose one that's the best summary, I think it might be B. Dabney's and Bushnell's failure with Computer Space led them to create Pong, which was successful. Paragraph 8 was all about Pong. Now, if I ignored that it asked me about only paragraph 8, I might cross that one out because I might think it's asking me about the entire passage, but it was asking me to summarize only one paragraph, making it a small fry kind of question. And if you did not go back to the text, then you did not answer it correctly. Growing readers always go back. So now number 7 asks me, part B, which sentence from the passage best supports your answer in part A? And I'm only looking for the one that shows Dabney and Bushnell's failure with Computer Space led them to create Pong, which was successful. So I'm noticing when I look at all 4 of these, D says the title Pong, and it was also talks about how it was successful and how they manufactured it. And D is the strongest evidence. Okay, so now let's think about number 8. Read the sentences from paragraph 6. This one's asking you about a context clue. Space War proved too bulky and complicated for the average person to play. For years, it remained a researcher's game. What does the word average mean as it is used in the sentence? So I'm thinking since this is vocabulary, I could try plug it in. Now when I do that, I'm looking for what makes sense, not what sounds right. So I'm going to plug each answer choice in. Space War proved too bulky and complicated for the younger person to play. It sounds right, but let's look at these clues. Bulky, complicated. I'm not going to cross it out. Let's keep going. ordinary. Space War proved too bulky and complicated for the ordinary person to play. Well, out of these two, I think ordinary is stronger than younger, so I'm going to go ahead and cross out A. C, outstanding. Space War proved too bulky and complicated for the outstanding person to play. I don't think so. And D, important. Space War proved too bulky and complicated for the important person to play. I think definitely an average person is an ordinary person. That's just anybody that can play. And that ends our review from yesterday's independent practice. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about some changes that we are making to next week's schedule. You may already know these if you receive my messages from School Status, but I wanted to take an opportunity to go over it with you. And if you have a question at any time, I want you guys to jot it down because I want to answer your questions at the end of our Google Meet. Okay? All right, so I'm going to read it to you, and I want you to fill in my blank using your comments. Good morning, 4th grade parents. I want to begin by thanking you for your support as we implemented our first full week of virtual learning. As a lifelong learner myself, it is important that I remain sensitive to the needs of students as well as families during this difficult time. As we are all learning and adapting to a new and unique approach to learning, we have decided to make a few changes to our virtual learning schedule beginning next week. We recognize this past week could feel overwhelming to some families, so we have adapted our schedule to try to meet the needs of diverse families. Paragraph 2. Instead of your child having 2 Google Meets per day, beginning next week, we will have 1 Google Meet per day. Math Google Meet sessions will be on Mondays and blank. Good, Sarah Barton. And ELA Google Meet sessions will be on Tuesdays and blank. Good, Sarah Barton's been the first one each time that I've seen respond. On Fridays, we will have both Math and ELA Google Meets just as we have this past week. Friday sessions will be specifically set aside for answering questions and helping students with assignments as needed. Friday Google Meet sessions will be for students who may need additional support or small group instructions. Time for Google Meet will not blank. Very good, Alexia. Math Google Meet will still be from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock with Miss Broom, and ELA Google Meet will still be from 12 to 1 o'clock with Miss Daniel. And then you can see a chart that gives you information that kind of shows you a picture of it. So math on Monday, you guys will not see me. You'll see Miss Broom at 9 o'clock, and you'll do your math independent assignment. On Tuesday, you'll see me. And then Wednesday, you'll see Miss Broom. Thursday, you'll see me. And Friday, you'll see both of us. And this schedule begins next Monday. That's after the weekend. Students will continue to receive daily independent practice assignments that mirror their Google Meet schedule. Students will receive math assignments on Mondays and Wednesdays and ELA assignments on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Independent assignments should be completed the day they are assigned. So guys, I need you to hear me say, do not fail to complete the assignments that are given to you. So on Monday, when you get your independent assignment from Miss Broom, do it on Monday. If you put it off till Tuesday, you're going to get overwhelmed. So then Tuesday, you'll meet with me, and I'll give you your assignment, and you'll complete it on Tuesday. Wednesday, you'll meet with Miss Broom. You'll get your independent work from her. You'll do your math work on Wednesday. If you don't do it on that day, it could cause some problems for you, and I just want to give you a tip there to help you. I appreciate your patience and flexibility during this time. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will do my very best to clarify and help you, and that's from Miss Broom and myself. So those changes will start next week. Now, I want to tell you I'm excited because we're going to do something different every Friday. Marley, jot that question down. I want to answer that at the end of our Google Meet. On Fridays, we will be practicing our areas of weakness with a chapter book study. So we'll start this today, and we will, every Friday, we'll be reading sections of this chapter book, and we'll be talking about what we discover. It's going to be a fun time. Now, Marley asked a question. She said, what if we don't need help on Fridays? I want to encourage you guys to come and meet with me to read Holes, because it's going to be a great chance for us to read an amazing text and learn together. But Marley's question, I think she's asking, is it required to come on Fridays? I'm not going to tell you that it's required, but I want to encourage you to come. Now, Tuesdays and Thursdays will be regular lessons. Fridays, we'll do our chapter book study. We'll also do some fun things with vocabulary games, so you're going to want to attend if you can, but it's not a regular lesson. And Marley, I hope that answers your question. So let's go ahead and start our chapter book study today with Holes. The author is Lewis, and I think maybe they pronounce their name Sausher. It looks like that to me. So I want us to start by thinking. Think, have you ever been at the wrong place at the wrong time? And I want you guys to use your chat feature to answer that question now. Have you ever been at the wrong place at the wrong time? Good. I see a lot of people saying yes that they have. Alexia is saying she's not sure. Very good. So I'm thinking about one time when I was younger, a time that I've been at the wrong place at the wrong time. This is what I'm thinking, I'm remembering. So I'm going to activate my background knowledge. I'm thinking one time I walked into my living room when I was about your age, and I noticed that someone had spilled something on the floor and left it. I did not do it. I was innocent, but I walked into the situation, and right when I walked in there, my mom also walked in and saw what had been spilled, and of course she thought that I did it. I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. So I cleaned it up, and I was able to later tell her that I did not do it, but that's something I can think about, being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Miss Ho, can you think of a time when you've been at the wrong place at the wrong time? And would you like to share that with us?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, when I was a kid, something happened similar to yours. I had a friend over, and she had spray painted part of our brick with some silver paint, and she was not there when my mom called it, so therefore I got in trouble for that.
Oh no, I can see how that would definitely be a problem, and you definitely felt like you were at the wrong place at the wrong time. Good. Well, guys, our main character in this story, something very similar happened to our main character. And some of you may have seen the movie, and so you might be able to make a connection with the book and the movie. Then, by looking at the first chapter, it's called Part 1, You Are Entering Camp Green Lake. And so you can see there's a couple of images on the side. There's a snake, there's a lizard, and you can see I've underlined a couple of things. Nora Beth, good. She said I've already read the book, so she's an expert on this text. And let's go ahead and start with the very beginning of this text, okay? You fill in my blank as we're learning together. There is no lake at Camp Green Lake. There once was a very large lake here, the largest lake in blank. That was over 100 years ago. Now it is just a dry, flat wasteland. Good, AJ. First one that said Texas. Paragraph 2. There used to be a town of Green Lake as well. The town shriveled and dried up along with the lake and the people who lived there. During the summer, the daytime temperature hovers around 95 degrees in the shade, if you can find any shade. There's not much shade in a big dry lake. The only trees are 2 old oaks in the eastern edge of the lake. A hammock is stretched between the 2 trees, and a log cabin stands behind that. Okay, so I think it's funny that the name of this camp is Camp Green Lake, but there's no lake. If you think that's funny, would you type a funny emoji or say it's funny? Marley, yes, I want everyone will be taking an AR test on this one. Good. I think that's pretty ironic. And the word ironic means when something is named something or something says something, but it's actually the opposite. Good. Let's keep going. I'm going to kind of show you where I am because we took a moment to talk. So I'm starting here. Okay. The campers are forbidden to lie in the hammock. It belongs to the warden. The warden owns the shade. So I'm thinking about what I know about a warden. That makes me think about a jail. And I'm also noticing it says the warden owns the shade. And of course we know that must be figurative language because someone can't actually own shade. So this, I can make an inference. I'm thinking that the warden must be pretty strict if the author's telling me the warden owns the shade. Now, the author didn't say the warden is strict right now, but the author did use words like forbidden and owning something that can't be owned, like the shade, so I can make an inference there. Let's keep going. Out on the lake, rattlesnakes and scorpions find shade under rocks and in the holes dug by the campers. Here's a good rule to remember about rattlesnakes and scorpions. If you don't bother them, they won't bother blank. Usually, being bitten by a scorpion or even a rattlesnake is not the worst thing that can happen to you. You won't die. Usually. Sometimes a camper will try to be bitten by a scorpion or even a small rattlesnake. Then he will get to spend a day or 2 recovering in his tent instead of having to dig a hole out on the lake. Okay, let's pause there. I want you guys to notice it's telling me sometimes a camper will try to be bitten by a scorpion or even a small rattlesnake. So they try to get bitten on purpose. Well, I'm thinking about why. It says, then he will get to spend a day or 2 recovering in his tent instead of having to dig a hole out on the lake. So it must be so miserable that they would rather be bitten by a scorpion instead of dig holes. This is an inference I can make. This tells me it must be a miserable place. Now, the author did not type that word miserable, so I'm having to infer that. And I could back that up with an inference where I can highlight evidence right here from it. Let's keep going. But you don't want to be bitten by a yellow-spotted lizard. That's the worst thing that can happen to you. You will die a slow and painful blank. Always. If you get bitten by a yellow-spotted lizard, you might as well go into the shade of the oak trees and lie in the hammock. There is nothing anyone can do to you anymore. Wow. So I'm noticing that these yellow-spotted lizards might be the most dangerous animal at Camp Green Lake. If you agree, would you send me a picture of a lizard using your emoji? Or if you don't have them, you can just type the word lizard. Good. Very good. Sarah Barton, we're going to talk, stay with me at the end and I'll talk to you about that. Good. Okay, so far we've learned a lot about the setting. We've learned about Camp Lake's Green Lake. We've learned it's a terrible place. And we've learned that people have to dig holes. Kind of sounds like a punishment. It's so hot there that they are wanting to be harmed by these animals. So they try to get bit just to get out of the work. Now, we don't know a lot about the character. We don't know really yet about anything other than the setting. So far, this is all that has been revealed. So let's keep going. We're going to begin. Paragraph 2. Stanley Yeltnels was given a choice. The judge said, "You may go to jail or you may go to Camp Green Lake." Stanley was from a poor family. He had never been to camp before. Okay, so for the very first time, I'm seeing something about the character, the main character, Stanley Yeltnels. And I'm also noticing it says he was given a choice, but probably not, since his only choice was going to jail or going to this camp. I'm also noticing the author tells me, using this evidence here, that he's from a poor family. I'm also seeing that he had never been to camp before, so this is his first time he's ever gotten in trouble. Okay, so we've made it, actually those are the first two chapters. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. So in the first chapter, we learned about the setting, and in the second chapter, we've learned a little bit about the main character, Stanley, but we don't know a lot about Stanley. Let's keep going. Chapter 3, fill in my blank. Stanley Yeltnels was the only passenger on the bus. I think we're about to find out a little bit more about what happened to Stanley and why he's at this terrible camp and why he had to go before the judge. And maybe why he felt like he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Stanley was the only passenger on the bus, not counting the driver or the guard. The guard sat next to the driver with his seat turned around facing Stanley. A rifle lay across his lap. Oh my goodness, listen to that. Stanley was sitting about 10 rows back, handcuffed to his armrest. His backpack lay on the seat next to him. It contained his toothbrush, toothpaste, and a box of stationery his mother had given him. He'd promised to write her at least once a week. So I'm thinking about that word stationery. Let's use the clues around it. A box, and it says he promised to write. I'm also noticing inside the word it says station. Stationery. I think this might be paper so that he can send her letters. So notice how I have to break down those words I don't know. Let's keep going. He looked out the window, although there wasn't too much to see, mostly fields of hay and cotton. He was on a long bus ride to nowhere. The bus wasn't air-conditioned and hot, and the hot, heavy air was almost as stifling as the blank. Stanley and his parents had tried to pretend that he was going away to camp for a while, just like rich kids do. When Stanley was younger, he used to play with stuffed animals and pretend the animals were at camp. Camp fun and games, he called it. Sometimes he'd have them play soccer with a marble. Other times they'd run an obstacle course or go bungee jumping off a table tied to broken rubber bands. Now Stanley tried to pretend he was going to camp fun and games. Maybe he'd make some friends, he thought. At least he'd get to swim in the lake. I bet he's going to be disappointed when he realizes there's no lake. So guys, I noticed Ms. Ho gave us a reminder, and I want to remind you as well that unless Ms. Ho or I have asked you to use the comments, we're not having personal conversations. So just like in class, you would not be allowed to turn and discuss something and talk without permission. It's the same thing here. And I realize this is different, but that is part of the social contract. Okay, so let's keep going. We're going to learn more about Stanley. He didn't have any friends at home. He was overweight, and the kids at his middle school often teased him about his size. Even his teachers sometimes made cruel comments without realizing it. On his last day of school, his math teacher, Miss Bell, taught ratios. As an example, she chose the heaviest kid in the class and the lightest kid in the class and had them weigh themselves. Stanley weighed 3 times as much as the other boy. Miss Bell wrote the ratio on the board, 3-to-1, unaware of how much embarrassment she had caused both of them. Stanley was arrested later that day. Wow, listen to that. So we know now that he is self-conscious about his size, that he's been teased a lot, and now we know he's been arrested. Okay, let's keep going. He looked at the guard, who sat slumped in his seat, and wondered if he had fallen asleep. The guard was wearing sunglasses so Stanley couldn't see his eyes. Stanley was not a bad kid. He was innocent of the crime for which he was convicted. He'd just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was all because of his no-good, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-great-grandfather. He smiled. It was a family joke. Whenever anything went wrong, they always blamed Stanley's no-good, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-great-grandfather. Supposedly, he had a great-great-grandfather who had stolen a pig from a one-legged gypsy. And she put a curse on him and all his descendants. Stanley and his parents didn't believe in curses, of course, but whenever anything went wrong, it felt good to be able to blame someone. Things went wrong a lot. They always seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I'm thinking about this word, gypsy. It says that long ago, Stanley's great-great-grandfather was cursed by a one-legged gypsy. And I'm thinking about what that word actually means. I'm looking for some clues around it. It says she put a curse on him, so kind of like a witch. And then it also says all his descendants, meaning anybody in this great-great-grandfather's family. That's what a descendant is. So a gypsy must kind of be like a witch. And gypsies are kind of what you might think about when you think about somebody with a magic ball. Okay, and now I'm noticing how this page ends. Things went wrong a lot. So Stanley does not have good luck. Now, we don't really know what Stanley's been arrested of yet. We only know that he has been arrested for something. We only know he's only been arrested for something. Okay, so that's where we're going to stop in our story holes today. If you're excited about finding out more about Stanley, would you write the words "I'm excited" or give one emoji that shows me how excited you are? Thank you, Cohen. You were the first one. Now, as you guys are responding there, I want you to know each Friday is when we will be reading holes. I also want you to know that on Fridays we'll be playing some vocabulary games. This also might be time that I use to help students who are struggling throughout the week on their independent assignments. We do not have a required independent practice assignment on Fridays. But I want you to read AR and take an AR test from home. We talked about that on our first day, that you are allowed to log in. You log in just like normal, and you're allowed to take a test. I also want you to spend time with your family this weekend, especially today because it's a beautiful day. Now, I want you guys to watch my screen and see something.